Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Roundtable Talk, Therapist Self-Care During a Pandemic. How are you doing? While checking in with our clients, are you checking in with yourself? That was the question I was recently asked by a colleague, and it got me thinking about our profession and peers. As therapists, we preach it all the time, right? Yet are we actually walking the walk? Especially during times like these when our clients may need a little more from us. How are we managing ourselves, our self-care, and our mindset? So I gathered 3 peers and asked them to weigh in on this topic, and I learned a lot while talking with them. And hope you find this bonus episode helpful as you navigate being a helping professional during a pandemic. We hope you find value, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Hey guys, before we dive into this week's episode, I want to tell you about a group I've created on Facebook. It's called the Talk Therapist Lounge, and it's a place where we talk therapists can find podcast guest opportunities. That's right, if you're a licensed talk therapist and you are looking to grow your reach and visibility, this group may be a place for you to start. I'm working to bring in podcast hosts who are wanting to interview licensed clinicians that can share their expertise and knowledge with their audiences. Why should you be a guest? That's a really good question. Let me tell you, people are crawling all over the internet, listening to podcasts and watching videos on mental health issues. My mission is to help spread the word about mental health treatment and help lower the stigma around mental health. And to do that, we need to get you guys out there sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom, and how you help people live their best lives. And it may help grow your brand and visibility and possibly help you gain new clients. I also share how to create a podcast guest one-sheet and tips and ideas for getting yourself booked on shows. So will you come join us? Look for the Talk Therapist Lounge on Facebook. I hope to see you there. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this is a bonus episode. I had this idea last night. I quickly jumped on social media, Facebook, and I reached out to some therapist friends and I said, hey, can you guys hop on a Zoom call tomorrow and talk about self-care for therapists? Because right now it's bananas. Things are bananas. And I was sharing that, it's bananas. You can define that in so many different ways for different people. But I know you guys are out there in the forefront and you've had to quickly transition how you're seeing your clients and your patients. Maybe even, new themes are coming up. And I wanted to know how you guys are doing through all of this and what it's like for you to have to pivot and shift and find new ways of joining and connecting with your clients. So I would like to introduce everybody. I want to give everybody a minute or two to say who they are and what they do. But let's start with Bridgette. So welcome, Bridgette Borsico.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I am an LICSW in Massachusetts, and I do individual and couples therapy through telehealth. And I was working only in a telehealth platform before all of this coronavirus anxiety. So I have a good base and platform for all of that and a system in place, but it still has shifted with everything going on. But it's been good. I work with individuals and couples going through life transitions, struggling with change, dealing with stress, anxiety, and with couples with unhealthy relationship patterns. What I've seen more recently with couples is just the change in routine and how that's impacting relationships and connections as well. So that's been a huge topic recently. But yeah.
Have you had any of your clients kind of tell you that they need to take a couple weeks off due to financial strains or stress?
I haven't. I'm working with those people on a sliding scale so that they don't. I have some nurses and doctors and pregnant clients, a lot of different backgrounds, different resources that they have, but I've offered my services on a pro bono basis too for a lot of our frontline workers. There's a lot of platforms right now that are asking therapists to volunteer their time or volunteer a sliding scale. So I've been a part of a lot of those platforms, but for the people who I don't want this to be a reason that they stop. So I work with them and figure out how we can make that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really neat. You were already a telehealth provider. That was your platform. So for you, it's probably that hasn't been a big shift, because I know a lot of therapists locally that I'm close with have had to jump on and find platforms. And that might be something I can ask Reese Palmer about. He is a LMFT here in South Carolina, and you pretty much were face to face, correct?
Yes, we were. I would say probably greater than 90% of our practice has been face to face. I had seen, some one-offs here through telehealth, but obviously have had to make a drastic shift over the last couple of weeks since COVID-19 really got ramped up, and folks started to get a little bit more cautious. So we definitely had to do that. We are a group private practice in Northeast Columbia. We see families, children, and adolescents. I work mostly with couples, generally couples in distress, sort of infidelity recovery, trauma, those types of things. And I have seen those numbers actually kind of creep up a little bit. I think that perhaps the social distancing and the folks staying home more, it's either great for the marriage or it's driving people crazy. So we've seen a little bit of a mix of both, but we absolutely had to shift gears and get the rest of our team on board with telehealth. I already had a platform that I had been working with that I was pretty happy with, but when we went clinic wide, we had to look kind of at it from a different perspective, since we were going to now offer it clinic wide as opposed to just one or two of us. But we've been very happy. We were wound up staying with the same platform, and our folks have been phenomenal. They have just been amazing with just being flexible and adapting to our clients' needs, and just really being very, very sensitive to the need of our clients, because everyone's anxiety is heightened, right? Everybody is feeling a little bit kind of on edge about this pandemic. So folks have been really, really focused on their clients. So I really appreciate you, Lisa, getting us together to talk about how we are keeping, our stuff together as helping professionals, because we're only as good to them as we've been to ourselves. So I think this is a great idea to talk about this today.
I would definitely want to, Stephanie Lincoln, I'm so glad you're here. You and I go way back. And I'm so excited to have you here. So tell us about who you are and what you do nowadays.
Yeah. So my name is Stephanie Lincoln, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor. And so that's master's level license, basically kind of focused more on mental health. And I had years and years of experience in the military mental health world. I'm personally an Army veteran, and I was doing some counseling with military members through a contract. And through my love for fitness and nutrition and all the research out there showing the connections between, our body and our medical issues and our nutrition and our mental state, I created a business called Fireteam Whiskey. And we do virtual fitness, nutrition, and health coaching. And under my license as a mental health counselor, I also do some therapeutic work with our clients as well.
Love that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So cool what you're doing. I just love it. And it blows my mind how you've pivoted. I think I'm a little jealous. I'm like, ooh. And not only that, like, you've created nutritional products too. I just think that's so cool. Like, you had this idea and you just went for it. I just think it's so neat.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's kind of a crux of the military minded person. We're more of a ready, fire, aim kind of people.
Yes.
We just kind of just dive in and, with barely a plan, and hope that we're quick enough to kind of shift some things as things go wrong.
Yeah. And that's initially how you and I met. You were my, when I was a contractor for the Guard, you were my clinical supervisor. And so that's how you and I initially connected. And then I don't even know what happened. Things shifted over the years, and I still work for the military as well. And you and I just became friends and colleagues. And I'm just so glad that you're here. I'm so glad all of you guys are here. So let's talk about the self-care stuff.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go first, how has your self-care shifted through this pandemic?
Well, I'll start. I think tremendously, honestly. I harp on self-care so constantly with clients, and to the point where if I don't mention it, they pick on me for slipping. And I think with that, I've always said, probably a very small percentage of people are doing the self-care that they need on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And now that this is going on, it's skewed even more. I think that we all even need more. And there's that old Buddhist saying that everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day unless you don't have time, and then you should meditate for an hour.
Right.
That mentality, right? Like what we need the most, we tend to put on our back burners. And I think as counselors and therapists and, full body mentality, we're constantly thinking of others in that care mode. And I think it's really had to be an effortful switch for me to say, what am I going to do for myself today? And I have kids and I have a husband and everybody's home. And so that's a big shift too. So even though I was already doing telehealth, I wasn't doing telehealth with 4 other people in the house. I wasn't doing, trying to maintain this space for clients and children and parents and everybody else and neighbors. And so I ask myself every day, literally in the morning, what am I going to do for my body? What am I going to do for my mind? And like today, for example, it was, I'm going to have coffee with a friend. I FaceTimed with a friend who's in a different state, and we had coffee together. And it was just to kind of start my day with no one around and take a breath. And I also said, I know I need to get outside because the next few days are going to be rainy. And so I've planned this afternoon with the kids to sit in the front porch while they ride bikes and, do that with social distancing in mind, of course, but just to get that fresh air, because I really think that there's something to the change of scenery, to the fresh air, to nature. And so asking myself, those 2 questions every morning is definitely not something I've done as religiously as I should have in the past. And I'm paying attention to that.
Yeah. I like that. I like how you have asked yourself that question when you wake up in the morning. How am I going to have time for myself? That's so important. I mean, maybe I'm just on routine by now, but there's certain things that I do that are for my self-care, but I don't recognize them as being for my self-care anymore. I just kind of like go through the motions. So I have to almost add extra self-care, and to a degree. So I really like asking myself that question.
I think that's what made the difference for me, is that I've noticed it doesn't feel like self-care. It feels like a chore unless I make it planned and intentional. So if I'm like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk today, it feels like something I have to check a box with, like something else on that master list that I have to get done. But if I'm making it more planned and intentional, it changes the mindset for me. And I know that I'm doing it with that frame of mind that like, okay, I can breathe through this. I can enjoy this time. I can look at it differently, and it affects me differently.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, totally can see how that flips the switch. I mean, I can relate to that with my kids being home and my husband, he's, coming in and out and working, but I'm working from home, and it's different than, hey girls, I'm going to go exercise for 20 minutes while you do your schoolwork, versus telling my husband, when you come home for lunch, I am going for a half an hour walk by myself to get some fresh air. It's a very different, it's just different. I really appreciate you saying that. Cool. Who else how has your self-care changed, Reese? I'm curious.
Well, it's interesting that, I'm feeling like the bad student here because I've been so hyper focused on making sure our team was taken care of and all of our clients are taken care of. And, I've got 4 kids and a wife, and, just trying to make sure that everyone's good. My oldest daughter is an LMFT in Connecticut. And so she called this morning and she needed some support, just dealing with practice issues and telehealth and just her own response to, to things, so I feel like, this was really much needed for me today to kind of come in here and hold myself accountable for kind of slipping a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Once this COVID-19 thing really started to escalate, I got away from some of the things that I'd be normally doing, like my cherished morning walk throughout our neighborhood, which I love. We have a wonderful golf course, a lake, and it's just a beautiful neighborhood. And, I had been doing, we have a couple of loops that I can walk and jog, and I got into a really good habit. And then I started a dreaded 30-day burpee challenge. I just COVID-19 just came in, like wiped out all of my great intention. I was like, I was so gung ho, the weather was starting to get good. And I was like, I'm on it. And then like the reality of COVID-19 hit, and I had to, kind of shift a bit. But the good thing about me is usually the thing that I start off every morning with, either individually or with my wife, we start off every morning with prayer and meditation. And we have a devotional that we'll do as a couple, and we'll talk about, kind of how to make our relationship stronger and communicate better. And just our intimacy. We want to make sure that we're not missing each other as we're, because obviously she's in the practice with me. So we're both, kind of in the fire together trying to figure things out. So, our prayer time in the morning, that quiet time before our two youngest come and descend and infiltrate our bedroom and dive all over us, we try to take that first hour of the day and thank God for the most part, we've been sticking with that because I think that's what's kept us sane through everything that's been going on for the past 2 weeks. But I do feel the need to get back into, getting outside and that's one thing that I think we have to always remember is, what really energizes us, what does it for us. And for me, it's definitely nature. I need to be outside. I need to be breathing in some oxygen from trees. I need to see the water as much as possible, preferably waves at the ocean if I can get there. That's my favorite type of water that's moving. But I'll take the lake or I'll take a pond. I just need to be in that kind of space with just the beauty of nature around me. And so that's a huge part, so hiking or just getting out on my bike. I'm an avid cyclist. So just getting back to those things and knowing that it's something that you have to, like Bridgette said, you have to, make it a regular part of your routine and not something that you just dive back into sort of sporadically here and there. So this is an encouragement for me to get back on track with the things that I had been doing before the pandemic hit. So.
Well, good. I'm glad we're reminding you. I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to text you like, hey,
I need an accountability partner.
Did you get your walk-in, Reese? Did you get your bike?
Absolutely.
What are you doing? What are you doing for self-care?
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie Lincoln, you have a lifestyle that I'm following you on social media and I'm like, man, I just love it. So not only do you have your exercise, your fitness and Fire Team Whiskey, you pretty much live an RV, right?
Yeah. So a year ago, there was a lot of reasons for it, but basically what ended up happening is we sold our house very quickly and kind of didn't have a plan to where we were doing next. And we had been talking for a few years about getting an RV. And so we kind of just spontaneously bought one and we've been on the road since. So almost a year now, we've been traveling all over the nation. We're so blessed because we both work virtually. My business is completely virtual and so is my husband. So we at any given week, we could be in a different location. And I think that's what's also helped kind of inoculate us from the stressors going on. And I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today and touch on. And of course, like I'm outside as much as possible. And I think that we couldn't emphasize that enough for everyone, especially therapists, because we usually sit, behind a desk or in a room all the time and we never see the sunshine. And maybe we go home and it's dark. And when we get to work, it's dark. And that is such an important part of, just our circadian rhythm and all of these different functionings in the body biologically. So just get outside, just, even just taking a 20-minute break and just getting some sunshine. That's so important. And that's huge for me. I work out outside. I'm outside all the time because we live in an RV. So there's not much space inside anyway. So that's super important. But I wanted to also touch upon, because I've been very aware of my reactions to what's been going on. And being therapists, we tend to, want to fix everything and to have some sort of control over the chaos around us. And, we're fixers, we're helpers. And that can be emotionally exhausting. And especially in a time where, we can't help everyone. No matter, even if we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we couldn't possibly help everyone who's suffering right now. And that personally for me, I've noticed has taken a toll on me. We were driving out, actually Sundays we go out somewhere. I go out on a hike, we go out to the mountains, whatever, out in the middle of nowhere, we disconnect. We don't go on social media, period. And we pulled over to get some gas or something. And I saw a homeless couple of quite a few homeless people, but a couple of them had dogs. And like, I have fur babies and that's like my heart and soul. And I just burst out crying. And, that was like my realization of, man, this is really sitting heavy on me as a therapist, as a helper. And I need to find some way to process that and to help me kind of do what I can to fix a little bit, and be okay with that and just kind of let that heaviness go. So I have intentionally, when we go grocery store shopping now, I put together 2 little separate bags of, bottles of water and protein bars and pet food. And I keep them in the car. So when I'm driving around and I see somebody who's homeless, especially with an animal, I stop and give them the bag. And I have to just let that go, because I can't help the 100 other homeless people that I see every day and the people who are hurting. But that helps me kind of let go of that heaviness and that reaction as a therapist.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's a unique position for you to be in because you're out driving around the country and you're in different cities and different states where the rest of us are just kind of like, we're in our world, in our home towns and home cities, and we're doing our work. But you're in like a completely different, you're seeing so much stuff like compared to out there physically on location. That's really interesting. And you have such a big heart. And I know that you are helping a lot of people with your bags and your dog food. So thank you for doing that. It's got me thinking, like, what else could I do that's not so much therapy, because like Bridgette said, and Reese also talked about, like, we could easily try to fill our day with talking to people and helping them with their anxiety and helping them with their stress. But I'm going to be completely honest, like that is the formula for burnout for me. So I really like how you've, shown other ways to be helpful. But yet at the same time, not have to really say much. It's doing. So that just gets me thinking. So thank you for sharing that. Hey friend, want to be more comfortable while sitting on the therapy couch? I sure did, and went looking for pants and tops that were soft, wrinkle resistant, and would match just about anything I already had in my closet. And now Zaya Active makes up about 80% of my wardrobe. Would you like to learn more? Head over to my site, lisamustard.com, and click on the Activewear tab. And don't think this is just for women. They have men's and kids' clothes too. And our family is loving the quality, and I am loving the price tags. So head over to my site to check it all out.
And my workouts, by the way, have been very intense.
Oh, I hear you, sister. Yeah, I know. I hear you. That's definitely one of my self-care. But it's funny when it comes to workouts, like I've been a lot easier with myself and more about just being appreciative of my health and that I'm able to be outside. And because, here in South Carolina, I don't know exactly what it's like in Massachusetts, but we're pretty much lucky right now. We haven't hit the top of any type of curve. We've just been told here in Columbia that we have to stay home starting Sunday for two weeks. So we can still kind of get to where we need to go. They're going to close the gyms here. They're going to close the salons, things like that. But what's it like in Massachusetts, Bridgette?
We're shut down completely by the governor in everything. The schools through May 4th. Yeah. The work has been a couple days now, full days. I think the beginning of this week, I think it was Tuesday at noon, they decided to close everything. So no more restaurants, gyms. I mean, that had been going on for a while on a smaller scale. Like you could still do takeout at restaurants. You can still do that, but there was no seating. Right. There was no gatherings of more than 15. I think now it's 10. And all the local parks and everything is closed. Everything is closed. I mean, I live in a pretty busy area and I don't see cars. I see a lot of people out walking and walking dogs and riding bikes, which is wonderful. Yeah. But everything is shut down. Yeah. It's a different mindset too. And, you being in South Carolina, the weather is nicer and warmer.
I won't tell you what it's like today.
Well, today's the first day we've had sun in quite a few days, and it's been really rainy and cold, like in the 40s. Yeah. So today it's supposed to be in the higher 50s, and I see everyone outside. Yeah.
I know in Massachusetts when it's in the 50s, like kids wear shorts and it's like spring's here, and my kids would be freezing if I told them to go outside in shorts in 50-degree weather. Like, what are you, crazy?
With that sense, Stephanie, what you were saying, I love that. My kids and I do the same thing in the wintertime because we see the homeless increase during that time visually, at least. We do, my kids call them blessing bags, and we do gallon Ziploc containers and put different stuff in them when we see somebody and give them out in the wintertime. But we've been talking as a family too, how do we stay connected to your community? Because I think that's a big piece of self-care too, to feel like you're not alone in this. And there's been a lot of community effort, at least in my area, where they say, let's go on a bear hunt, and anybody puts teddy bears in their windows. So if you are cooped up in your house, you can go for a drive and see how many teddy bears you find, and go back to, some Facebook or something and count them up, or individual schools are doing that. There's an initiative. I live near a pretty large hospital. And there's an initiative for everybody to put hearts on their windows, hearts on their doors, so that people that are going to work in the morning can feel supported by the neighborhood. And because so many people are out walking, there's a lot of people going out with chalk and chalking their sidewalks with kindness messages and things like that. And I love all of that stuff because it's educational for the kids. You don't have to sit in a classroom to feel like you're growing and learning. It's connecting to the community, to something bigger than you. It shows the gratitude of all the, people still doing. So the other piece of that is that our conversations have changed. Like at dinner, we always did highs and lows as a family. And now we've added to that and said, okay, what are we grateful for? And tomorrow we plan for who are we going to connect with? So my kids and I all decide, who are we going to reach out to tomorrow? Maybe it's writing letters to people in the nursing homes who can't contact their family. Maybe it's calling a cousin or a classmate you haven't reached. But it's been really interesting. And I am not a huge social media person, but I love the way that it's bringing people together right now differently than it ever has.
Yeah, I agree on the social media part as well. Reese, you're nodding your head. Do you have some things that you guys are doing as a family?
Yeah, I think that, what we've been doing, and a lot of it is connected to our school community. We have an amazing school community. My kids go to our local elementary school. We're blessed. We're probably, less than 2 miles away from our elementary school, and it's an amazing school. The principal there is literally a local legend. She's amazing. Fortunately, retiring this summer, so we're very sad to see her go. But the teachers are doing Zoom meetings. They're still doing morning meetings. They have their local little television program that the principal still does. Kids can log on and see that. Over the weekend, they had a parade through our neighborhoods. So all of the local neighborhoods that are in that school district, they sent out messages on social media and our emails and just blasted everyone saying, hey, come out and say hi to us. We're going to be driving through. And it made such a huge difference for the kids to get out and just see their teachers go by, and the principal and the administrators. I mean, just literally down our street, like 40 cars, just honking and just waving, and teachers and their kids and their pets in the back. It was just a wonderful day to have the kids outside, and we were out in the yard and we were just kind of, waving. And so that's been really amazing. And then like at 3:00 this afternoon, my second grader has a Zoom meeting, and yesterday my kindergartner had a Zoom meeting with his teacher, and they did a virtual scavenger hunt, which was awesome. Cool. And so it's just been really cool to connect with community at our, in our school, and allow our kids to stay connected to their classmates. Because while the kids initially were like, what, no school? Yeah. They were super excited, but then they realized that, that means, they don't get to see all of their friends. They're not going to the after school program, so a lot of their socialization is connected to school, and so it was a little bit tough for them. But around, the table most days, we kind of, have tweaked our hours practice. Since we're not here as much in the office, we've reduced a number of hours in the office. So that gives us time to, have a leisurely breakfast together. One of our favorite family things to do, which is extremely educational for our kids to work on their ELA skills, is apples to apples. I don't know if you guys have heard of that game, but it is definitely a crowd pleaser in the Palmer household. So we actually did a live video of that and posted it to our PTO Facebook page, and folks loved it. They thought it was just a great idea. It was really funny to see at the time, our kindergartner was the judge. He was trying to decide between the answer that mom gave or his brother gave. And so he was kind of deliberating which one to go with. Yeah. So it was just fun, to have the time to actually just have these, these discussions. And talk about, what's happening in the world and how this is affecting people. And fortunately, my mom is still in Connecticut with my brother and my daughter. They're all still up north, but my in-laws are here. And so it's fortunate that they do get to see their grandparents. And so we check in on them, make sure that they have everything that they need. My father-in-law is a cancer survivor, so we want to make sure that he's in good shape. And then he just had hip surgery last year and knee surgery a few months ago. So he's just got a lot going on with his health. And so we're just helping the boys, go over and say, hey, go see if Dada needs help in the garage or some work around the yard.
Yeah.
Just being more, helping them to be more focused on others as opposed to just what they want and what they need. So I think it's helped us to be more intentional about those messages and using those as teachable moments. So, and it's even helped, with our oldest, who's right now still working. He works in the automobile industry, and they haven't really shut down or slowed down very much. But also having him, help out with his grandparents as well. It's been, it's just great to do that. And then also the elderly that are connected with our church congregation, making sure that we're checking in on them, doing any pharmacy runs if they need medication, making sure that they have food or Meals on Wheels set up, all that kind of good stuff. So I think that the positive that has come from this pandemic is it's made us look outward more, but there's still, again, a need for balance to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well, individually and as a family.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you've said, I'm just, nodding my head and agreeing with you. It's definitely our family is slowing down. I'm really loving the fact that I don't really love homeschooling because I'm not a teacher and I'm not I'm not in the mind frame to do that, but I'm learning how to help my kids learn. And I was curious, we are going to get through this. We are going to come out on the other side for sure. And things are going to look different. And, I say that, but I don't know what that really means. But we know that different is going to be on the other side of this. When you think about your practice and moving forward and you think about your clients, what do you envision? Do you envision doing more telehealth? Do you envision, I guess, maybe checking in with each client and seeing what they prefer? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think if I can jump in real quick, I do think that this is going to continue for us as a very consistent way of connecting with our folks and making sure that we're meeting their needs. Because, I mean, telehealth is really about meeting your clients' needs where they are, and for Bridgette and Stephanie, they created their practices and their business around that. And so they can be very much meeting the clients where they are, and so it really became very obvious to me that, this is something that should be something that we offer consistently, not just, when we're in the throes of a pandemic, but it really has been a blessing to a lot of our families, especially with kiddos, because we see a lot of kiddos in our practice. And, to have, that, because they're not seeing their teachers every day anymore, and they're maybe not seeing, the other adults, caring adults in their lives, but they get to still see, their clinician, and so, and they do their play therapy virtually and things of that nature and engage the parents. And so I do think this is a very, very powerful and viable medium to provide care for our folks going forward. And so I absolutely see this being a huge part of our practice going forward. I don't think at this particular stage, although Stephanie is living my dream life, I'm so jealous. I've been wanting an RV since I was 8. I'm 51 now. I still don't have my RV just yet, but I would love to be able to do that with my wife when the kiddos get a little bit bigger. But I think this is going to be a huge part of our practice going forward.
Yeah, things are changing.
Yeah.
My hope for change, across the country, more or less, as opposed to in my business, is that I've noticed more of a need for reciprocity with licensure.
Yeah.
And really good HIPAA compliant platforms. I have a great one. I use it. I use Simple Practice and I love it. But I think when I work with college students, there's so many colleges here in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And now with all of them shutting down, kids are going home to everywhere, all over the globe. And the continuity of care currently is garbage because of that. And some of these kids who have gotten connected with people and are tossed out of their comfort zone and need that care the most aren't going to have it and aren't going to know how to reach out for it and reestablish. And it really it hurts my heart. And so
Mhm.
I've spent a lot of time reaching out to other boards or getting some, permission, and some of them will grant permission right now from 60 to 180 days. Some states are removing need for reciprocity for this time period or for a
Mhm.
certain time period. Others are being more lenient about HIPAA compliant platforms. So they're allowing you to use things like FaceTime and Skype as opposed to
Mhm.
another platform. So those changes are good for right now, but I'm wondering, long term, how more of that can be implemented for some of these needs
Yeah.
that we're seeing. I hope that as we move into this, we're not just changing back to what was and kind of trying to
Mhm.
find a new, more appropriate, more forgiving normal.
Yeah.
I hear
Great
you.
points.
I agree. I mean, I completely agree with you on all of that. And I really hope that's coming. I really hope that's coming.
I was thinking the same thing, Bridgette. I am hopeful that, I think it's changes, change is hard. Obviously, we know that we're advocates of change, but we also as therapists need to remind ourselves that this change could be a good thing for us as well as
Mm.
therapists and our practices and the way we do things and the way we think about what we're doing moving forward. So just getting a different perspective on what we do, can be a tool for change for us for the better. Also just for the really emphasizing the self-care and, therapists, of course, we totally suffer from burnout quite a bit. And I'm sure each one of us has experienced that. And if you're listening to this podcast right now, maybe you're feeling burnt out or have been through that as well. So to put some things in place, I mean, I help with fitness and nutrition too. So it's not just a reactionary thing, like, okay, we're having this kind of global pandemic and we're all stressed out. Let me put some tools in place right now to
Mhm.
help me deal with this. But are those things going to stay in place long term, or are they just going to fade away as soon as, these lockdowns are over and we kind of go back to status quo, and then we get built up again and then get burnt out and we start the cycle over again? So we need to really examine ourselves and be honest with ourselves of, our kind of failure to, have those procedures put in place first before we have to, knee-jerk react to a situation like this, because it could be something like this could happen again.
Mhm.
We hope not, we knock on wood, but we need to have those habits already put in place. So, and my focus on the nutritional side of things, I'm just horrified. Like every time I go to
Mhm.
the grocery store and just see these carts full of, processed foods and sugar and empty carbs and, foods that provide zero nutrition whatsoever.
Mhm.
And, I'm just like, like
Mhm.
if we could have the habits put in place of taking care of our bodies nutritionally, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have this knee-jerk reaction of, you know, piling in all this sugar and carbs and zero nutrition into our carts when we have, an overwhelming need, to deal with our stress.
Right.
Mhm.
So, just a reminder for ourselves as therapists to really examine our own lives and
Sure.
go, you know what? What are these things that I need to have permanently in my life to prevent me becoming overwhelmed when something like
Mhm.
this happens again? Because it will.
Well said.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm so glad that you brought that up because it has me kind of going down the inventory of what are some things that I think are self-care, but they end up really not being self-care. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to be honest with you guys, like I love an adult beverage, but,
Mhm.
and I don't know about y'all, but the days are really weird right now and 4 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, it's cocktail time, but that's not what I need because
Yeah.
that impacts me as a mom. And I don't want to start that habit, even if it's
Mhm.
just one. I know not only does it, kind of it changes me, but it also affects my sleep. And I am
Mhm.
a stickler for getting good sleep. So I'm like, Lisa, what are you doing? So thank you, Stephanie, for reminding me that and that that's not necessary. I don't have to have that for self-care. Like it's
Mhm.
a nice thing to do, but it's not necessary. So thank you. Thank you for kind of bringing that up. I'm going to be very mindful of my own habits. And just so you guys know, We have green beans, frozen green beans in our freezer chest. So don't worry about the mustards. We got vegetables in the freezer, like so many frozen vegetables right now. My kids are like, green beans again. I'm like, you're gonna eat it. You're gonna have your pizza and you're gonna have your green beans. This has been such an awesome talk. Thank you guys once again for, jumping on last minute. I would love it if you would share how people can get a hold of you. So Bridgette, tell us where folks can find you if they want to know more about you.
Sure. People can find me at my website is probably the easiest. It has all of my social media contacts, my phone number, email, any of that is totally fine. I work with a lot of younger people, and if you want to send a text to my phone number, that's also okay. But my website is bridgetohealthyself.com. And I want to just draw attention to that media tab on my website because there's a lot of free information I'm putting out right now. I'm doing a lot of live casting right now so that people can get information about some of the things we talked about today. For example, I just did a live and recorded it and did slides in case that's helpful for visual learners about combating anxiety in the face of change and uncertainty. I've done one for parenting tips on kind of how to be at home when this is new to us with kids, to be teachers and work from home and be with spouses and whatnot. And I plan to do one for couples in the future. So people who want some free information and some tips and tricks, that's a good place to pay attention. But it's bridgetohealthyself.com.
Yeah. And I've seen you do some podcasts recently too. So good. That's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm throwing them all in that media section so people can have access to all of that. Okay. I'll put this one there too.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll put a link to your website in the show notes for sure. Definitely. Reese, how can folks find you?
We are on the internet. Our webpage is palmercounsel.com and PALMERCOUNSEL. And that's probably the best way to connect with us. But we're also on social media, Palmer Counseling and Consulting on Facebook. Similar to Bridgette, I've also been putting some content out there because a friend and colleague encouraged me to do that, Miss Mustard. So I've been putting out some videos about couples and ways to maintain or create deeper intimacy in your relationships, and just kind of going through some of the challenges that, couples go through in marriage and relationships. And so I plan to do more of that on the social media platforms that we're on. So Twitter, you can find me at Reese Palmer, LMFT. So those are probably the best ways to contact us.
Cool.
And looking forward to hear from everybody.
Yeah. And I'll put your information on the show notes as well. And Stephanie, how about you?
Yep. Fireteamwhiskey.com. Yes, like the beverage whiskey.
Or W. Oh, I gotcha.
Fireteamwhiskey.com. All our social media links are there. But I also host a podcast, and we are on iTunes and Spotify. And it's called the Warrior Wellness Podcast. So just search for Warrior Wellness Podcast. And then also, just like Bridgette and Lisa, you do this too. We go live on somewhere, one platform every single day with a tidbit. And then also, if you check out our YouTube channel, we have free 5-minute workouts. We have free meditation videos as short as 3 minutes, free yoga videos, and we also have our very first videos in each of our fitness series programs. So those are about 20 to 30 minute workouts. Those are also free as well. So if you just go over to YouTube, you can get a bunch of free stuff from Fire Team Whiskey.
And I just want to remind people, you don't have to be in the military or a first responder to sign up for Fire Team Whiskey. Because I remember you telling me you had a lady who was How old is she? And
she was like 72 years old when she joined. And I literally, like, when I called her when she signed up, I was like, are you sure that you're the right website? So I mean, you never know who your voice will, people who will respond to your voice. So that's why you got to put it out there, right?
That's right.
But you are correct, Lisa. You don't have to be military first responder to do our stuff. You can be anybody. We have everything from beginners workouts to advanced, but anybody can meditate. So go over to YouTube and do our 3-minute meditation.
Wow, you guys are, I'm just so lucky to have you all in my world. Thank you so much for hopping on and doing this interview and this roundtable. This is just, I say it all the time, like part of the reason I started this podcast was I wanted to connect with like-minded therapists. And I'm just grateful that you guys have come into my world. So thank you again. And like I said, I'll post all of that on the show notes. And you guys, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.